Hi, everybody. It's the last week. All of us are tired, I'm sure, and ready to have a little bit of summer before fall starts, and the classes start. So I can appreciate that. And so we have a little bit of a lighter schedule today, and we'll be able to I'll probably let you go a bit on the early side, but we'll have a couple good discussions. One, an article that Robert found that he thought would be interesting to talk about, and another one that a class member submitted that I thought was interesting enough to talk about with the whole class. So, is everybody hearing me okay? Hopefully, a little better than the last couple of weeks. We found an audio issue that we fixed, so that was good. And so hopefully you're hearing me a lot clearer, and the recording will be a lot better. So that's goodness. So okay, yes, she says. Denise does. What did you mean, Jacob? What did you mean by week 6 class hours still had that bugged text submission? What do you mean by that? You don't have to put in a text submission when you attend anyway, so I gave you 100 points based on just the fact that you were in attendance. So not quite sure what the text submission being bugged means.
Is he referring to the video link? Could the video link have been bad again?
In week 6?
Yeah. Or
Yeah,
this week.
that was last week, wasn't it? Week 7? Where I sent everybody the wrong direction? No, it was week 6. Yeah, that's right. It was week 6.
Okay.
So,
Well.
all right.
Glad to see somebody to hear it regardless.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so how many folks do we have?
We have 12 at the moment, I think.
Okay. I did give you points for it, didn't I? Jacob? Didn't I, Blue Lightning? Having to refer to your name to remember to connect them. So you've got the points for that week, though, right? I hope, anyway. In any case, I'll wait for that response. Maybe you can tell me when that response comes.
Yep.
Grade still shows 0? Okay, I will remind me to go fix that, please.
Will do.
Because, yeah. Remind me to go fix that one. That should be good. Alrighty. Got a couple of topics today. We talked a little bit about the fact that miners took a big hit when they didn't, when the revenue stream went down, when the price went from 60,000 down to 15 or 12 or whatever it bottomed out as for Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin miners were sucking wind for a little while in the respect that their revenue went down, because when they were given 2 Bitcoins before, it was worth 60,000 a piece. Now then they were given 2 Bitcoin and it was only worth 30,000 or whatever, 15,000 a piece. So today it's up to a little less than 31, between 30 and 31 anyway. It seems to be kind of inching its way up by little jumps, and then kind of leveling out and stabilizing, and then going up by a little jump. Bitcoin is starting to act more like stocks, which kind of, that's the way the financial system likes to run things. So the SEC has kind of made rules and put regulations around it such that they're going to behave more like the normal investments that Wall Street likes, instead of the kind of ad hoc investments that were initially intended, as a disruptor to the, fiat currencies that was first envisioned. So, whether that's good or bad or otherwise, we're going to have to wait to see. I think it's going to allow more institutional investors to get comfortable with Bitcoin, which may be a positive. It may make it very difficult if somebody wants to use it as an escape to a CBDC that may come up later, if it gets too institutionalized. So it could be a two-edged sword. I'm not quite sure. We're going to have to wait and see how that transpires. So what I want to do is basically talk about this article that's on the screen right now. This is the one Robert found, and basically it's about one miner called Hive Mining that pivoted in a unique way with some of its miners. Now, it wasn't just impacted because of its Bitcoin miners. It was mining a lot of Ethereum as well. And Ethereum was proof of work until they changed over to proof of stake earlier this year. And in the process of changing over to proof of stake, the miners were totally invalidated. Everybody knew it was coming, but that doesn't mean that the miners that you've got currently grinding away at proof of work for Ethereum, that you're going to just take them offline and chuck them. You couldn't do that. You have too much money invested in it. So they kept using them, of course, until they were obsoleted and they had to take them offline at that point. So what do you do with a bunch of miners that don't mine the Ethereum anymore? Well, what you try to do is you try to repurpose them. Well, a lot of the miners that were being used by this company were GPU miners. Now, GPU miners were, your basic video card. A lot of times they weren't your basic video card. They were the high-end, expensive ones. But in any case, GPUs are very, very good for doing mathematics work. And so they took the GPUs and developed the code such that they could put the GPU to work in a regular computer rather than simply having an ASIC machine whose sole purpose was to do Ethereum or Bitcoin. So in this case, they had 38,000 GPUs. So they had 38,000 video cards set up on motherboards and cranking away at Ethereum. So what do you do with all these GPUs? Well, what they decided to do is they decided to go ahead and take these 38,000 graphics cards and see if they could then point them to working an AI as an AI server farm. In other words, cranking all the data that went into supporting AI systems. Well, that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. A lot easier than trying to change an ASIC and point it that direction. But in any case, the GPUs could be then pointed to do work for AI development and AI when they're up, like OpenAI and ChatGPT and those manufacturers from Google, Microsoft, Amazon, all of them. So they would offer cloud offerings, and they would be able to then, allow the data to be sent to them. They'd process it and send the information back, like a typical cloud application that you would employ, for Microsoft Cloud Services or Amazon Cloud Services, that type of thing. So they began doing that, and they had basically two categories of machines. Some GPUs that were just getting old enough they couldn't be repurposed, and some of them just, didn't have a life anymore. At least not to go from Ethereum mining over to AI mining. They needed to be a little bit more recent vintage GPUs than what could do AI mining. So they repurposed a good number of them, and they're hoping that they can recoup some of the revenue. Now, as I scroll down here and go below, by the way, this information is also found in this video that's embedded in this article. So I'll go ahead and post this article at the bottom of the live stream after it gets published as a full live stream, and you can just go view it. I'll put it down in the comments, in the comments section. So I'll put a link to that video in there as well as the link to this article. So basically, here's some financial data. Now understand, I'm a finance person at my core. I do a lot of IT stuff because that's how I made myself valuable with Boeing. I developed finance systems for Boeing. So I know a lot about accounting and economics, and I know a lot about coding and and this kind of stuff like blockchain. So here's the company's net loss during 2023 was 263.4 million. So that's quite a substantial loss, especially when they had a net income of 76 million or 79 million in 2022. So they obviously took a huge hit when Ethereum went offline and went off to proof of stake. So the drop in Bitcoin valuation was a major contributor, it says here, but also was the depreciation on their equipment. So they still have ASICs that are churning out Bitcoin, and they still have 66 million worth of cryptocurrency on the books in their treasury, so to speak. So basically what they did at that point is they decided to pivot. And in deciding to pivot, they're hoping that they can get about $1 million in revenue off of running its servers for AI processing rather than running for Bitcoin or, for Ethereum. They figure about 500 of their 38,000 GPUs run for a full year would be able to generate $1 million in revenue for providing that service to other companies. Compared to its total balance sheet, that's small, it says, but still they're trying to make ends meet. And so in the context of what we talked about last week, where we talked about the one Bitcoin mine that was struggling through hard times, this is one way that Bitcoin miners, jive and chuck and work through the ups and downs of this kind of a market. A lot of times well in advance of a change like Ethereum did that you can adjust, which I'm sure they did to a certain degree. But once you have 380,000 video cards that are all purposed for, Ethereum, that's a little bit tough. Bitcoin mining with a GPU is just worthless. They don't do enough work to make any money doing Bitcoin on GPUs. So that wasn't an option. The option was only to be able to go another direction with those GPUs, or put them all on eBay, see how much you could get out of them. And I'm sure they put a good number of the older ones on eBay and got something out of them. So let's see if we have any questions. Do we have any? NVIDIA did something to where GPUs were not as efficient as older models to combat the demand for GPUs.
Yep. Yeah.
You have a comment on that?
Well, it's inside of the GPU. It used to be that all the cores in a GPU were identical. And what they're doing now is they're creating a lot more specialized cores for specialized things. Specifically, there are ray tracing cores now. And by using multiple different kinds of cores, it kind of two things. On one hand, it's more efficient at specialized topics like ray tracing. On the other hand, it makes it not quite as good for general purpose mining.
Okay.
But that's at least part of the story. I don't know the whole story, but yeah, I've heard that same sort of thing.
Interesting.
Unfortunately, if you're in the in the hobby of building nice higher end computers, it
works.
Well, today if you want to buy a nice high end video card, if you're buying a 4080 or 4090, NVIDIA's latest card, you're paying nearly $2,000, whereas even 5 years ago, hitting $1,000 was a stretch. And this is a big part of it is Bitcoin and AI usage.
Yeah, it kind of angered me, the fact that, building my new computers, the major component now was the video card rather than the motherboard and the memory and the CPU. All of a sudden, the video card was the high-end piece in building a computer, and that was a little, frustrating.
Yeah, it can be half the cost now.
What?
It can be half the cost of the computer now. No.
Absolutely. I build high-end computers. Anyway, so I have my next computer priced out, and what did we price out? A 3060 or 3070, something like that? We kind of stayed mid-range because the 40 didn't give us really enough extra oomph to make it even worthwhile. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on in this particular one. And like I say, I'll go ahead and put this one down in the comments down there, so you can look it up if you have that desire to dive into it a little bit further.
The other thing I'll say about this is that, there is a huge leap forward. Yeah, I've paid a lot for the GPU. Everybody does.
Yeah.
I hate it. What was I saying? Yeah, even though we know that OpenAI got a huge leap forward on the AI game for the public, so many other people are pushing forward, and not just Meta and Google and the big players. There are a ton of smaller groups, a ton of open source large language models that are being developed, and all of them need places like this.
Okay.
And the big thing with AI, as opposed to a lot of other services, is you need it to compute the model, and then it's really easy to run on your desktop. You can run GPT-4, the cream of the crop, on your local computer if they would allow you to.
Okay.
It's just training the model that takes a massive data center like this.
Okay. Interesting.
So,
Excuse me. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, he overpaid a lot for his GPU. That was a comment by Jacob.
it's Jacob. Yep.
Yep, that's Jacob. Okay, and Tyler's saying for a while it was more cost efficient to buy a pre-built with the GPU you wanted in it than just taking it out and throw it into your rig. And actually, we did that once. We did that with Robert's last computer, where it had the GPU we wanted, and it was a whole lot cheaper than buying the GPU separate. And so, okay, now that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but packaging them, the builders get package deals. Obviously, they're deep enough that you're absolutely right, Tyler, that is one way to get your GPU.
Yeah. I think it was about $100 more to buy the whole PC than just the GPU. I think that's what it was. I was
Yeah.
like, if there's anything in this entire case I can use, it's worth it. And yeah, it was.
Yep.
So
Yep. And we've since upgraded the memory, and we've upgraded the...
everything but the GPU.
Oh, really? Yes, we upgraded the motherboard, the CPU, the
Everything.
memory, and the GPU came... Yeah, that's right. Now, where did all that old hardware go?
It's this computer
Oh, we're using it
for streaming.
for the streaming. Very good. Very good. Okay. He has a Sapphire 6900 XT.
He went Radeon. Team Red.
He went Radeon. Oh, is that as bad as going Mac? I'm sorry if I insult any of you Macintosh
No.
users, but
The problem is the 4000 line is kind of bungling it right now. So there's a lot of people who are going Radeon for the first time ever. A lot of people. So
yeah, that's what you
And
that's what happens when you misstep.
That's
you put out
kind
a
of the
crappy
direction I'm
product.
heading right now, which I don't like, but
Yep.
Anyway.
All right. Don't worry, let's be crappy. Remember that video? Don't worry, let's be crappy.
Oh, yeah. We can continue now.
Yeah, we can continue now. All right. Well, let's talk about the future of real estate. We're treading on very, very new territory when it comes to real estate. It's hard to realize how unaffordable housing has become. And based on that, there's got to be ways to, have a buyer come in and not end up paying 10% in addition to the price of the house on fees and people that handle various transactions and all of that nonsense. You've got to have the bank getting their act in with your escrow account, where the buyer puts their money in and the bank puts their mortgage money in, and when you're ready to close, then the bank finally funds sends the money over to the seller, and all these people touching things and having to be intermediaries in the whole process. That is a gold mine when it comes to the ability of blockchain to cut out a lot of those intermediaries and move forward. this article actually focuses on just the payment side of it at first, and then postulates how much benefit it could be in other areas. So this person, I believe it was, he quotes somebody in here. The mayor of Miami proposed people to pay for their property taxes and city fees with crypto. Remember Miami getting into the news about them going whole hog on Bitcoin in a big way. Okay. Then shortly after that, a Miami penthouse sold to an anonymous buyer for $28 million and paid entirely in cryptocurrency. So you've got a buyer, you've got a seller, you have the ability to send the crypto payment. The buyer sends it, the seller looks at his account, it's there, give me the keys, and away we go. So that was the most expensive real estate transaction in the U.S. at, they say to date. At least at the time of this article, it was the biggest one. The writer of the article is a big proponent of the fact that Bitcoin can get rid of those banking intermediaries and the trust company that's in the middle of a lot of those transactions, simply because all of those people take an inordinate amount of cash out of the transaction and make it even less affordable for those people who are stretching to really make the down payment. Like, you buy a $100,000 house and you put $20,000 down. That's a big number for a lot of us anyway. The wealthy probably don't bat an eye at it, but I would. My retirement funds, of course, are bigger than that. That's fine. But I don't necessarily want to take out of all of my retirement funds just to buy a house. I got to have something to live on, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's simply a situation where, 1% taxes added on the top for just for the governor. The state takes their taxes, and then the feds take their taxes, and then you've got the trust company taking their fees, and on it goes. So just in the payment side of it, if you had the Bitcoin transaction in the middle, all you have to do is say, did you send it? Good. Did you receive it? Good. Then we do the rest of the transaction. Even if all it was Bitcoin, you cut out the escrow and all the escrow fees and the people that have to handle that money to get it from the mortgage company and or the buyer and transfer that money then to the seller's account and make sure all those accounts are right and all that. And, they get paid probably $1,000 an hour to do that, because I just can't believe that it takes all that much time to collect that little bit of information, but they charge you, thousands for it, literally. I just sold a house recently and I can attest to that. So what happens then if we take all that a trust company does? And literally, I went in and signed papers, and of course they give you a stack of papers, and you've got, by the time I got done, my signature didn't look at all like it did at the first. My arm just got tired, signing and more signing. They've tried to reduce the paperwork, but I think they're losing the battle on paperwork reduction. But what if you took all of those different functions that are performed in order to make sure the transaction goes in, like the title verification, the background check, the financial background check that you have to go through to make sure you don't have any debts on your current title, and all of that information? What if that were all put on a blockchain? You would know in an instant if there were any liens against the property. You would know in an instant if there were any other claims against the boundary lines or boundary line disputes, or any sort of bills that are still due because of the roof and a lien was put on your property, on and on and on. You would know instantly if there was anything like that, if it was all on a blockchain. And so this writer here basically postulates the idea that if all stages of a real estate transaction were put into blockchain, that it would radically simplify and radically reduce the cost of all of these items. And I don't think we're all that far away from it. There are plenty of good, solid blockchains that are able to handle all of this type of data. And I'm going to introduce to you one particular blockchain that's not mentioned in this article, but it's called Algorand. Now, Algorand was written specifically to handle asset type contracts. Literally, it got its visibility by El Salvador saying, we're going to adopt Bitcoin as our currency that's going to be our national currency, and we're going to adopt Algorand to manage all of the paperwork, transactions, certificates, accounts, licenses, and they're putting all of their documentation that they have throughout the whole country onto this Algorand blockchain. They have a specific company hired to use Algorand specific and put together the contracts, the automated contracts, smart contracts. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lost the word smart there for a little bit. Put together all the smart contracts that enable the transaction and holding of the right kind of data for the right kind of title, for example, title to a car, title to a house, property deeds, on and on and on. And they're doing that all on Algorand. And as they perform all of this and become the model for this kind of use of a blockchain, you're going to see other countries and other jurisdictions begin to adopt it. I know earlier, and I don't know if it was this class or a prior class, we talked about California and their DMV department, beginning to adopt smart contracts for their DMV. You're beginning to see the facade crack open and start to do this kind of automation. It really cuts down on corruption. And so corrupt administrations won't adopt it. And I think that's going to be a clear indication that if they're not willing to adopt good, secure technology, that there's something wrong under the hood and some persons under the hood that would rather have it be a little loosey-goosey because they're making too much money under the table than to have it secure and well done.
Or they're just wanting to always make their own, so they can put their own little back door in there so they can do whatever they want,
Like corruption, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's called, corruption.
Well, when it comes to El Salvador, one of the big things when implementing Algorand, one of the humanitarian views that was kind of put out there was there were a lot of people going to people who had lived on a particular piece of land for generations, and they'd go there and they'd say, hey, you have this land, can we pay you this money and you can give us land, you can live there, we don't care, we just need you to sign this piece of paper and we'll give you a little bit of money. And of course the people living there are incredibly poor, and the people walking by with this piece of paper is like, okay, fine, I'll sign a piece of paper and I get money and I get to eat and I get to buy another couple chickens or whatever, get to upgrade your life. That was a big thing going on at the time. And now with this system, they're able to basically stop all that fraud that's happening, prevent all those people from just coming in and taking money from people who don't really know better, and make it a much more official system. And they literally had teams of people going through the country just saying, okay, what's your name? You live here? How long have you lived here? Excellent, it's yours. Here's your boundaries. And being able to set things out in a way that matched how people were actually living.
Yeah. And they all of a sudden had a legal document that said, I live here and this is mine. And yes, that was a sad story.
Yeah.
And a blockchain came to the rescue in that case. So anyway, that is what I have for y'all today. And like I promised earlier that I wouldn't keep you the whole time. It's kind of a custom in this 8th week to always kind of go halftime and give you some more time back. So any last questions? Post them in the post them in the chat window, and I'll keep answering them by typing. And hope to read some great papers at the end of the week, and wish you good luck in your rest of your educational pursuits. So we'll see you again later.